Chapter 1176. Cleaning Up, 2. Once they were gone, Li Minggong finally collapsed. Her vision went dark, and she nearly fainted. Li Qinghuai rushed forward and caught her. She had rushed into battle moments earlier and fought fiercely against Situ Biao, who wielded a spirit artifact. Her anxiety and haste had cost her composure. She had fought with everything she had. Her mana was utterly spent, and she had only been standing by sheer willpower. Elder sister. Li Qinghuai supported Li Minggong, looked around, and saw that everyone was wounded. The white ape had taken on his true form to resist the Situ family's assault. A golden hook had pierced through his chest. His body was covered with wounds where flesh had been torn away. Now, reverted to his white-haired human form, his injuries were deep enough to expose bone. Li Wen lacked the strength to fight alone and had assisted the white ape, so he had escaped with only minor wounds. Miao Shui, who had only recently recovered, had once again been struck down. Her collarbone had shattered and half her neck had been sliced away. Though mended with converging water, the wound still looked gruesome. The old Chu Buji had little combat ability to begin with. His desperate efforts had achieved little, and he suffered several broken bones. He could only stare sorrowfully at the devastated floating south territory below. While Li Qinghuai was checking on them, Li Minggong steadied her breathing, straightened within the lingering flames, and said softly, "Where is Ding Weizing?" Before they had arrived, Ding Weizing alone had held off the forces of the Golden Tang Gate, sustaining heavy injuries. His absence now was a troubling sign. No unusual phenomenon. He should be fine, Li Qinghuai offered. They descended together into the main hall. Li Minggong wiped her tears and asked, "How fares the family head's life, Jade?" That golden fiendish light rising from the east. Did Situ Mo fall? I'll go ask right away, Li Qinghuai replied, and quickly withdrew from the hall. Seeing the gazes of all the surrounding cultivators turned toward her, Li Minggong gritted her teeth and said, "Where's Sun Bai? Bring him here at once." Miao Shui spoke softly from the side. "When we withdrew during the battle with the capital immortal Dao, Sun Bai, as a guest cultivator, lacked the means to defend himself. It seems he was forced into a formation in the mountains to hide." Miao Shui's words were polite, but the truth was that the capital immortal Dao had deliberately let them go. Sun Bai could have retreated with them, yet with danger ahead and behind, his resolve had wavered. He had feigned defeat to flee and hide. Li Minggong had already stopped crying. Sun Bai's behavior was understandable. He wasn't much help to their side anyway. To put it kindly, keeping his life intact might yet prove useful. She merely said, "Now is precisely the time that we need him. Bring him here quickly." The group exchanged glances. Li Wen, clearly unwilling to leave Li Minggong's side, stayed where he was. Chu Buji, whose injuries were lighter, took to the wind and flew eastward out of the hall. Li Minggong finally sat upon the main seat and felt the world spinning around her. She had wielded both the six-cornered scarlet flame lamp and the capital Dao bell, while also driving the Chengming profound insight screen. As the main force resisting the mountain-dimming peak-moving cord, she had taken heavy internal damage. Outwardly, she seemed fine, but her insides were a wreck. They waited for some time, but Sun Bai did not appear. Instead, a streak of white light swept across the sky, fluttering gracefully as though stepping on invisible stairs, and descended outside the hall. The white light coalesced into a figure clad in a pale white Taoist robe. He was refined and scholarly in bearing, though his expression was heavy with worry. His elegant robes had been scorched in several places by merging fire, leaving him slightly disheveled. Chui Jian had arrived first. "Lord Chui," Li Wen immediately stepped forward. Compared to the other outsiders around them, he clearly placed more trust in Chui Jian, the man Li Shiming had brought back, and pulled him to his side. Chui Jian saw that half of Li Wen's jade armor had shattered and that his energy was faint. Unease flickered across his face. When he noticed the grief written on everyone's expressions, his suspicions were confirmed, and his heart sank. He said quietly, "When I saw the heavens quake with thunder just now, I knew something had gone wrong, damn it." Li Minggong began coughing, covering the blood that spattered into her palm. She took out a pill, swallowed it, and said, "My thanks for resisting Guahongjian out in the wilderness. Had you not done so, Milan would have fallen." Chui Jian cupped his hands respectfully and said, "It was not my achievement alone. Profound Peak Gate has a cultivator named Master Fuyue 1. His strength is extraordinary, and his mastery of artifacts and Dao is exceptional. He should be the foremost figure of Profound Peak Gate." Just as he finished speaking, Chu Buji hurried in with Sun Bai. The old man looked disheveled and ashamed as he bowed and said, "My strength was insufficient. I await your punishment, my lord." Li Minggong had no time for courtesies and immediately gestured for him to take her pulse. Sun Bai lifted his robe and stepped forward, summoning a soft blue light through his immortal foundation. The moment he pressed it against her pale wrist, his expression changed drastically, and he closed his eyes to circulate his mana in haste. Li Minggong's complexion eased slightly. She swallowed the blood in her throat, her voice clearer as she said urgently, "Go find Ding Weizing at once. Send men out in every direction. We must bring him back safely, no matter what." As she spoke, she withdrew her hand and motioned for Sun Bai to examine Miao Shui and the white ape next. After a few coughing fits, she asked, "That Taoist master from earlier, do any of you recognize him?" Miao Shui, who had been listening quietly, pushed Sun Bai toward the old ape before he could tend to her injuries and said, "I cultivated in this region years ago and once had some entanglement with a disciple of the Golden Feather sect. Though our paths diverged due to background differences, I heard descriptions. This one should be Taoist Master Tianhua, the youngest Taoist master of the Golden Feather sect's Tianzi generation." Li Minggong took note in her heart. When Sun Bai finished examining them all and gave his assessment, she dismissed the group to rest and turned to Cui Jian. "I'll trouble you, Jian. Go and look for him." Cui Jian nodded, withdrew, and transformed into a streak of light that vanished into the distance. The great hall fell silent once more, with only Li Wen seated cross-legged outside, quietly standing guard. Only then did Li Minggong's tears fall. She coughed softly, sorrow tightening in her chest as she thought to herself, "Now, only Chenghuai and I remain in our generation." Chenghuai was brought back later by Uncle Shijuan. He lacks the old bonds and carries little authority. It will be hard for him to step forward. "I cannot enter seclusion yet. I must first handle little brother Chenghui's affairs." Chenghui. All the brothers and sisters sat together back, then in the small courtyard on Qingdu Peak, and even 3 large tables couldn't seat us all. Uncle Shijuan came with the family head, and I still didn't believe I would ever reach foundation establishment. I once thought I, Li Minggong, was fated to be a supporting hand in the family. Yet now, I am the only one left to face it all. 1. Previously known as Fu Yuezi. Chapter 1177, Thunder Rain, I. After resting and tending to her wounds for some time, Li Minggong finally stirred from her daze. At that moment, Li Qinghuai entered from outside the hall. His expression was heavy, tinged with both joy and worry, as he spoke in a low voice. "Elder sister, Situ Mo has fallen. I heard that the family head made his move on Lake Xian, first killing Situ Mo to avenge our family, then facing 6 cultivators of Changshao Gate head-on and slaying Master Yunnan as well. Finally, he forced the Changshao Gate cultivators to retreat." Li Minggong immediately looked up, a flash of satisfaction crossing her face, but worry soon followed as she asked, "What happened afterward?" Li Qinghuai replied, "I heard he was received by the Cheng family and has retreated to Wanyu." Li Minggong let out a long breath of relief, much of her tension easing as she said, "As long as he escaped, that's what matters. Both sides are safe now. Tell him to stay out there and preserve his life." Li Qinghuai nodded. Li Minggong coughed lightly and said, "I won't hold on for long. I'll have to enter seclusion soon. Take care of your elder brother's funeral first. Spare the elders from too much strain. After that, I hope you can look after the household and advise them where needed. Tell me, what are your plans?" Li Qinghuai hesitated before replying, "I do wish to share the family's burdens, but my father is the master of Jutian Pavilion, and my mother is an immortal descendant of the Azure Pond sect. If I were to take the lead, it might not sit well with others. The side branch has always cultivated in the Azure Pond sect, and my appointment to Qingdu was already an exception. There's never been a precedent for someone like me to preside over the island or act as head of the family." Li Shiji, the master of Jutian Pavilion, had long been favored by the Xi family and was clearly a cultivator of the Azure Pond sect. The Yang family, too, was an imperial family aligned with the Azure Pond sect. Li Qinghuai's background was indeed a delicate matter, yet with no one else to rely on, Li Minggong could only sigh and say, "Just keep a low profile. There's no need to show yourself. Things have quieted down for now, and none of the families will act rashly. What I fear is that someone may try to use you to drag third uncle into the mess, giving the Azure Pond sect an excuse to interfere. With our Purple Mansion realm cultivator away, we'd be powerless to resist, and might end up in a disastrous situation. Li Qinghuai spoke softly. My father was too deeply involved in the fall of the Qi family. The true monarch has yet to return, and Qi Buzi remains abroad. No one knows his fate. Back then, my father and the Taoist master decided not to return to the family for this very reason. We'd best remain cautious. Li Minggong nodded. This matter isn't too troublesome. After all, there's Cui Juyan. His cultivation is profound, his Tao attainment deep, and both his character and ability are exemplary. With him watching over the family, nothing major will go wrong. After finishing their discussion, Li Minggong saw Chu Buji entering the hall to pay his respects. She quickly asked, "Have you found Ding Weizing?" Chu Buji's expression was strange as he repeatedly shook his head and replied, "Guan Lingdai of the capital Immortal Tao has come to see you." Li Minggong froze for a moment, hesitated briefly, and then said, "Then, let her come up first." Li Qinghuai frowned, stepping forward to stand beside his elder sister. Li Wen quickly retreated as well, the two positioning themselves on either side to guard her. Only then did the woman in colorful robes enter the hall. Guan Lingdai was not alone. Several guest cultivators who escorted her remained outside the hall. Only Gongsun Baifan, wearing a straw raincoat, followed her inside. For once, the woman showed restraint. She halted at a respectful distance, her expression uneasy, and spoke with a mix of stiffness and politeness. "Greetings, Taoist Li." Suppressing the weariness on her face, Li Minggong responded courteously as usual. "And you are here for?" Which, in turn, prompted Guan Lingdai to say, "Our gate's capital Dao Bell is currently in your family's possession. I've come to reclaim it." Although the capital Immortal Dao was known for its capricious and unpredictable ways, Li Minggong had no intention of offending them now. She could only respond gently, "Please, speak." At those words, the childlike Guan Lingdai immediately dropped her airs, her tense posture easing as she replied, "Years ago, during an exchange, Situimo sent one of your family's guest cultivators to us. We of the capital Immortal Tao have hosted him generously ever since. Now, we intend to return him as a token of gratitude for your family's returning of the capital Dao Bell." And Siwei, Li Minggong's heart suddenly lightened. Hope flared in her eyes as she asked, "Is that true?" Guan Lingdai paused briefly, then spoke smoothly. "Many of the conflicts and misunderstandings in the past were mostly stirred up by profound peak gate or forced upon us by Changshao. We had no choice at the time." She went on for some time. Li Minggong quickly noticed how fluent her words were. It was too fluent for someone like her, and Li Minggong suspected that she was reciting something taught by Guan Gongshao. Once she had finished, Li Minggong drew a pitch-black bell from her sleeve and said softly, "The Dharma artifact is here. Taoist friend, please take it." Guan Lingdi's face lit up with joy. After giving Gongsun Baifan a few instructions and sending him off, Chu Buji soon returned. The old man circled Guan Lingdai and came to Li Minggong's side, speaking softly. "The people of the capital Immortal Tao below have released Masterin. His aura is steady, and he's unharmed. The injuries he suffered before have all been healed." Li Minggong handed the Dharma artifact back. Guan Lingdai examined it briefly, exhaled in relief, and without further ado, departed on the wind. After a few breaths, Siwei finally entered from the hall. Siwei's aura was steady, and his robes were clean. The long spear on his back was the same as when he had left, yet his eyes were rimmed red, and his face, though still dark-haired, had aged noticeably in just over a year. The vigor in his bearing had faded, leaving behind a weariness that was difficult to conceal. In truth, the capital Immortal Tao cared little for Siwei. To Guan Gongshao, he was merely a mediocre cultivator who had relied on borrowed spiritual aura and Jade True's guidance to stumble into Foundation establishment. He had been nearly forgotten in the dungeon. Yet struggle and guilt had long taken root within Siwei's heart and tormented him day by day. That the Li family had used a supreme-grade Dharma artifact to exchange for his release had come far too suddenly. Freed without warning, Siwei still felt uneasy and bowed deeply, saying, "My thanks, my lady." Though old enough to be treated as an elder, Li Minggong addressed Siwei with respect. She gently urged him to rise and said softly, "Please take some rest. I still have matters to attend to and cannot keep you here long, Dharma Protector." The elder, one, has been worried. This will be good news for him to hear. Siwei bowed again and withdrew quickly. Li Minggong forced herself up from the main seat, glanced blankly toward the thunder in the heavens, and murmured, "Brother Qinghuai, go catch a few bolts of lightning, seal them in a bottle, so that they can be buried with him in the ancestral tomb." Li Qinghuai drew a dark bronze bottle from his sleeve and replied, "I already caught them yesterday." Li Minggong sighed and followed him out of the hall. A young man with ordinary features, golden eyes, and black hair waited at the main entrance. He was the second young master, Li Jianglong. Li Jiangqian had issued arrangements earlier, so the household affairs were already in order. The group silently rode the wind toward the lake. When they crossed the river, they saw white mourning silks hanging over the Fei family estate on the northern shore. 1. Should be referring to Li Xianxian. Chapter 1178, Thunder Rain, 2. Years ago, Li Qinghui had defended the northern bank and rescued many of the Fei family from Floating Cloud Cave. He had spent much of that decade stationed there, so the Fei family members knew him well. Now, their wails echoed faintly across the lake. Beyond the northern bank, the lake was draped entirely in white mourning cloth. Though Li Qinghuai had asked for a simple affair, the surroundings were still blanketed in white. The silence was so heavy it was unsettling. It continued until they reached the island, where the sound of sobbing filled the air. Inside the hall, white drapes hung down. Esteemed elders filled both sides, while youths and children knelt below. The coffin had been placed in the center, and the muted weeping continued as they awaited the remains to arrive. Now clad in mourning white, Li Minggong stepped into the main hall, and the hall erupted in grief. Every man and woman burst into sobs. Even those whispering moments earlier began to wail whether they had tears or not. Standing in the center, Li Xuanchuan's tears fell at last. Before the coffin knelt a boy, weeping more bitterly than anyone. Li Minggong silently stood aside as the spirit item representing the remains was placed before the altar. Li Xianxian took charge of the rites, while the boy cried until he nearly fainted. Li Minggong waited quietly for a long time. The crowd all glanced her way, clearly awaiting her declaration of inheritance. Feeling ill at ease, she turned and stepped outside. Only after sunset did Li Qinghuai emerge with several elders, and they began their discussion. Though she could hardly accept it, matters of inheritance had to be settled to prevent future discord. Forcing herself to speak, she asked softly. Chengming had no wife, let alone children. Treasures like the six-fold profound thunder punishment tokens must be reclaimed by the family. As for his other possessions, spirit items, resources, foundation establishment dharma artifacts, and chi cultivation robes, they should be passed down according to inheritance law. These are of great value. Has anyone been chosen? Having once overseen Qingdu, Li Qinghuai answered promptly. Elder brother had considered this before. Since he had no children, he wished to adopt his older brother's son. But he worried he was still young. If he later had children of his own, it would cause strife, so the idea was stopped. No one had expected Li Chenghui to perish so soon. Li Xianxian, now dry-eyed, gripped his sleeves in silence. Li Minggong asked, "Who are his closest kin now?" Li Qinghuai replied, "There are 3. The closest by blood is the young son of a family member, meant to be adopted into Chenghui's line. He's 13 now and has never met brother Chenghui. That would be the boy crying his heart out earlier. His father brought him at dawn to kneel first and claim the spot." Li Minggong's brows furrowed with worry as she said softly, "I wondered who it was, crying so hard. I fear he's skilled at feigning sorrow and shallow in true feeling. If such a person inherits the line, I fear it will tarnish Chenghui's good name." Li Qinghuai continued, "There are 2 others. The older one is also closely related by blood and excellent in all respects, save that he's hot-tempered and blunt. He knelt in the hall earlier, but didn't shed a tear. The youngest is of a more distant line, but he often visited brother Chenghui's manor for a time, and I heard brother was fond of him. However, he's stationed on the eastern shore and hasn't returned." Li Minggong was silent for a while before asking, "From what I've seen in the hall, most of the Zhouxing generation care only for their own branch or themselves, and few hold the family close to heart. They act more like sect disciples than family. This isn't unique to our house. Shao and Qin families are the same. It's a sickness among great families, not a moral failing. Leave the Dao lineage's inheritance open for these 3. When the time comes, we'll judge their hearts carefully before deciding the heir." She hesitated briefly, then heard Li Xuanchuan's weary voice. "Gong, bring all 3 to the island. Don't let them harbor other thoughts. It would reflect poorly otherwise." Both nodded in agreement. Just then, a stir rose below as hurried footsteps echoed through the corridor. A man in red robes arrived late. pulling on white mourning clothes as he descended on the wind. His face was handsome and polished, but the old man's heart sank and his lips began to tremble. Li Qinghuai glanced over and, as expected, recognized him as Li Zhoming, the direct grandson of Li Shiming. Li Qinghuai and Li Minggong had deliberately avoided mentioning his absence earlier, but now the boy had walked straight into trouble. You unfilial wretch. Li Xianxian was a cultivator of the 9th stage of the qi cultivation realm. He only needed to lift his sleeve to snatch the young man out of the air. Li Zhoming had intended to slip quietly into the hall, but was met at the entrance by the 3 elders. Fear seized him at once. He dared not struggle and fell to his knees with a thud. Yu, your uncle died for the family's sake, and yet you dare arrive late to his funeral. Li Xuanchuan's heart was filled with both grief and fury. As the legitimate grandson of the Purple Mansion realm line, Li Zhoming should have stood alongside Li Zhouwei and Li Zholuo as one of the family's pillars. Yet his disgraceful behavior made the elders' vision blur with rage. The young man knelt, trembling, on the ground. Around his neck hung the golden charm Li Xianxian had gifted him at birth, glinting faintly as he clutched the elder's leg, crying, "Please, elder, don't be angry. Calm yourself. Your health. Please take care." He was not without charm. He was delicately handsome, well-groomed, and if not for his groveling, even somewhat dignified. But with Li Shiming newly missing, Li Xianxian could not bring himself to punish him harshly and only glared coldly. Li Minggong had never liked him. She turned her head away, ignoring his pleas as he clung to Li Xuanchuan's leg. Sigh. After all, it was a funeral. Li Xianxian finally gave him a kick and told him to get inside. Li Qinghuai, never one to meddle in such matters, even murmured a few consoling words to the young man. Li Minggong nodded weakly as she swept her gaze across the hall. As soon as the 3 left, the wailing lessened considerably, though many still forced out loud cries. The sight left her disheartened, and she could not help but murmur, "I fear that the ambition built over 6 generations of our family will end up in the hands of a crowd of." Minggong. The old man struck his wooden cane against the ground, cutting her off. Though tears glistened in Li Xuanchuan's eyes, his voice was still strong. When there are many people, it's inevitable some will be mediocre. They cry a bit here and leave, but it's nothing. The selection on the island remains fair and clear. The few from the Jiangxian generation are all fine talents. Don't speak such dispirited words. Li Minggong quickly nodded. Beside her, Li Qinghuai stayed silent, though his thoughts weighed heavy on him. He sighed inwardly. If not for Zhouwei, the Zhouxing generation would have already declined. If not for the fine children Zhouwei raised, how many in the Jiangxian generation would still make a name for themselves? The old man always insists on seeing the brighter side. The 3 gradually fell into silence. Rain poured heavier from the sky, the lake churning under its weight. Suddenly, Li Minggong's brows lifted in surprise. Her hoarse voice broke the stillness. Someone's breaking through. Li Qinghuai looked up as well, his expression far more delighted. Taking a step forward, he extended his senses and then met his sister's eyes. It's the Jing Dragon King. Qinyang has been in seclusion for years. He's finally broken through. No wonder. He must have drawn upon the power of the dwelling heart that charges profundity. Ripples spread across the lake as Li Qinghuai nodded to his sister and rose into the storm. Within moments, he saw a gray flood dragon coiling in the sky above Mount Qingdu, baring its fangs with a fierce glint in its eyes, its long whiskers whipping in the wind. A young man dressed in black rode upon the dragon's back. His shoulders were broad, his brows sharp, and his light gray eyes gleamed beneath the storm. Black hair streamed behind him as he circled once and descended before Li Qinghuai, smiling as he clasped his hands in salute. "Greetings, my lord." Chapter 1179, Shouyu. Sea's End. The sky was a deep blue as a streak of flight raced past, carving a bright red trail through the heavens. It was headed toward a place where spiritual energy was thin. After flying for more than half a day, it descended onto an island and transformed into a woman. She wore a slightly oversized brown Taoist robe with an incongruous brocade coat thrown over it. She had autumn yellow cotton boots that barely completed the outfit. She oriented herself for a moment, then flew toward the island's center. As scattered tribesmen came into view below her, she nodded inwardly and thought, "Once I finish checking things here, I can take these people away. They can open new fields in the wild hills back at the temple. A few thousand as seed stock will do." She reached the island's heart and indeed found a great turquoise hot spring bubbling without pause. Its spiritual qi was still fairly abundant, which delighted her. She thought, if the spring vent remains after I collect the goods, it will be very useful. The only thing is, that devil cultivator said there is a gout of flame below. If I move the items away, this big spring will likely vanish as well. She let out a cold laugh as she muttered, "Fine abacus you keep, fellow phone. You dared seize my fire-repelling shield. Pawning it with the Noon Pavilion talisman brush is one matter, but the item is still mine. Where do you think you can take it?" She tossed the fire-repelling shield lightly into the air, and it spread into a sheath of red light. She examined the surroundings with care, and, once certain the spring posed no problem, slipped beneath the surface. Her cultivation far surpassed that of the two junior cultivators from before, and her speed was in another league. She quickly reached the bottom of the spring and followed the earth veins downward. After 15 minutes, she slipped into a region where flames roared. Shouyu's attainment was not shallow. Joy flickered across her face. There is indeed fire beneath the cavern's spring waters. She pinched off a wisp of flame and examined it closely, surprise stirring in her heart. This is spell art fire, not a natural fire. There may truly be a cultivator's cast-off beneath. To wield such force even after death, he must have at least reached foundation establishment. The woman moved cautiously, but within the flames, a pair of eyes flickered with hesitation. How can it be just a 9th-stage Qi cultivation realm cultivator? Li Shiming had waited here for more than half a month. His luck was unusually good, since another person had arrived. After observing her for a few moments and listening to her muttering, he immediately understood the situation. So the one who killed and stole the treasure has himself been slain, and it seems the one who killed him was the lender of the fire-repelling shield. He must have shown his face in some market and been discovered. The Eastern Sea really is in chaos, another life gone. Li Shiming quickly dismissed the thought with a hint of bitterness. The end of the sea was nothing like the prosperous Jiangnan, the heart of the world. This cursed, barren place did not even see the shadow of a single foundation establishment realm cultivator. The woman before him, Shouyu, was probably one of the few notable figures in this region. The ease with which she had retrieved her Dharma artifact marked her as a local power. Of course, anyone capable of the foundation establishment realm wouldn't come to this forsaken corner. It would be better to head to the shallow sea or the Unison Sea and pledge to some established power. It's surely preferable to eating dust where the spiritual energy is thin as air. 9th stage of the Qi cultivation realm or not, there would be no stronger figure in this wasteland. Li Shiming could only grit his teeth and accept it, though watching her inch through the flames left him uncertain how to proceed. Cultivators of the Eastern Sea don't dare get entangled in Purple Mansion realm affairs. If I show the face of the righteous path, she won't believe me. It would be better to take on a demonic guise. Coercion and temptation might make her feel safer. He recalled once meeting an old ghost in the Eastern Sea who claimed to be righteous, yet demanded a demonic creature be brought for blood food, promising a rich reward in return. Even he, Li Shiming, hadn't believed it, and had fled as far and fast as he could. Judging by her mismatched garb, she was cobbled together from scraps. Even as a local figure, she likely lacked any powerful backing. It may even be that she doesn't know what the Purple Mansion realm stood for. Luring a foundation establishment realm demonic creature here doesn't necessarily require a foundation establishment realm cultivator. There are plenty of ways to trick one. Someone at the 9th stage of the Qi cultivation realm might manage it just fine. Conveniently, she fits the bill. Meanwhile, Shouyu was so elated she could have danced right there if the timing weren't so ill. She thought, the remains of a foundation establishment realm cultivator. A true foundation establishment realm cultivator. If there's even one foundation establishment realm Dharma artifact down here, my household will be rich beyond measure. She hurried forward through the flames, warding them off with careful steps. After a full circuit of inspection and a round of talisman probing to ensure safety, she finally approached the skeleton and cast a thread of Dharma light to seize the storage pouch on the ground. Boom. But the instant her Dharma light spread from her hand, the surrounding flames surged up, devouring the radiance completely. In a heartbeat, it crumbled to ash and vanished. Shouyu hesitated for a moment, then bent down, extending her arm with utmost care to pick up the storage pouch by hand. Crack! A faint scraping sound brushed by her ears. Shouyu's heart jolted as she yanked her hand back, only to find it would not budge. A chill gripped her arm, biting deep enough to hurt. A skeletal arm had already risen from the flames, its 5 bony fingers clamped tightly around her wrist. Every hair on her body bristled. Mana surged wildly through her arm as years of refined footwork and movement techniques sprang instinctively to life. Her free hand reached for the storage pouch at her waist, but she could not move. Her mana vanished as though swallowed by a bottomless abyss. No motion followed, no resistance remained, and Shouyu stood frozen in place like a statue. Li Shiming seated her before him with ease. Subduing a Qi cultivation realm cultivator was effortless for him. As his skin slowly surfaced, he gave thought to what kind of face to show. Not his own, of course, but one that looked nothing like a good person. A face came to mind. A face with sharp brows, ashen eyes, and a sinister air. Cruel and vicious, the kind that looked ready to devour someone alive. The face of Li Yuanjiao. Second uncle. Li Shiming faltered slightly. Memories often struck without warning, like an unreasonable storm crashing into his mind. This Taoist master Zhaojing, who had been hunted to the brink of death by a great cultivator in the Eastern Sea, who hadn't shed a tear even then, now found his eyes turning red. Li Shiming had always feared Li Yuanjiao. Oddly, when Li Yuanjiao died, he had cried, though never as he did for his own father, Li Yuanping. In later years, he thought of his uncle only on memorial days. Yet now, in that sudden flash of recollection, it was as if he had seen him again, like lightning, brief and piercing. And instead of fear, he felt a deep ache of longing. Damn it! Li Shiming cursed inwardly. His face shimmered and shifted until it became completely blank. There were no features and no expression. Now, though it bore no monstrous visage, it was far more terrifying than any face could be. The woman opposite him made no sound. After all, she couldn't move, nor could she speak. Her pupils had dilated to their limits, as if she might faint at any moment. Chapter 1180, Seclusion of Chengming, I. Li Shiming finally remembered the woman before him, Shouyu. She was already so terrified that her legs had gone weak. Judging from her dark, dilated pupils, she looked as though she might die of fright at any moment. With no other way to ease the tension, the pale face before her cracked open, and a voice spoke. My young friend, you've finally arrived. Whose ancient monster's lair have I stumbled into? It's over. That creature's appearance, he must be planning to seize my body. After all, Shouyu knew she possessed nothing worth coveting. The only thing that might catch the eye of a powerful cultivator was her body. It wasn't her chastity she feared losing, but the horror of having her body taken over for another's rebirth. She kicked weakly on the ground, but failed to stand. Still, as someone who had carved out a place for herself in the marketplace, she was not without wit. Trembling, she spoke fearfully. Jar, Great One, I am but a humble rogue cultivator of the Eastern Sea, with nothing of worth upon me, nor do I follow any exalted Tao lineage. If I have trespassed upon your treasured land by accident, I beg your pardon. Should you require assistance, anything at all, please command me. And if you crave blood food, allow me to go fetch it for you. Li Shiming chuckled in reply. How could it be an accident? Seeing that his mind was clear and that he made no move to devour her, Shouyu felt a slight wave of relief, though her fears still overwhelmed her. Trembling, she stammered. It was my greed that led me to offend your treasured land. Li Shiming casually released her, and she collapsed to her knees with a thud. He corrected her calmly. I reeled you in with my divine ability. Divine ability? Purple Mansion Realm. A chill seeped into Xiaoyu's heart. She stared at the ground in disbelief. She dared not use her spiritual sense to probe the man whose face was blank and featureless. She could only kneel there, shivering. You don't believe me? Li Shiming guessed she didn't believe him. Raising his hand, he gestured casually. Xiaoyu suddenly felt her limbs burn with searing heat, then vanish entirely, reduced to ash. With a dull thump, her limbless body toppled to the ground like a wooden block. Deprived of her limbs, Xiaoyu lay on the ground like a wooden stake, staring blankly at the ceiling of the cavern. The faceless visage appeared again above, exhaled softly, and grinned. Grow. A prickling sensation spread through her body. New flesh sprouted from the charred stumps like buds on an old tree. In an instant, her arms and legs grew back, and the warmth of the ground returned beneath her. Rising unsteadily, she felt the world spin around her. Her newly grown limbs were pale and tender, unfamiliar to her control. She dropped to her knees again with a thud and cried out, Taoist Master, I truly believe. Whatever you command, I will obey. Li Shiming smiled. That's more like it. Your body is no more than a weed in my eyes. I have no interest in your mortal flesh. What matters now is the task I'm about to give you. Do it well, and you will gain benefits beyond measure. Shouyu couldn't guess what he intended. With her forehead pressed to the ground, she waited for his command and heard Li Shiming say, I am here to suppress a certain thing and cannot leave. I have starved for long, with nothing at hand to nourish me. I need a valley water demonic creature at the Foundation Establishment realm. Since you happen to wander in, bring me one such creature, and I will count it as your merit. Me? Shouyu froze for a moment. Instead of hastily agreeing just to escape, she bowed her head and answered timidly. Honored one, I am alone and my cultivation shallow. How could I possibly capture a demonic creature for you? Seeing her demeanor, Li Shiming knew his earlier display had earned her fear and obedience. Adopting the tone of a Purple Mansion realm devil cultivator, he said, Fool, I don't care what excuse you use, whether it's treasure or spirit items that lure it, as long as you bring it here. Even 9 lives won't save it from my grasp. I understand. Shouyu trembled, hesitating for a moment before speaking cautiously. Honored one, I know the territories of a few demon generals. The valley water you mentioned should be one of the water virtues, but I have never seen such a thing myself, so I cannot be sure. Only then did Li Shiming recall how impoverished and ignorant the cultivators of this remote place were. He sighed and explained, water flowing through valleys is called valley water. It represents what is concealed and not yet released. In the heavens, it manifests as rain-bearing clouds. In man, it is the hidden water of the womb, the nourishing, unmanifest essence. What in the world? This Purple Mansion realm discourse. How is a mere chi cultivation realm cultivator like me supposed to understand? Shouyu said timidly, I don't understand. Li Shiming's expression darkened as he scolded. Then just find the demon general most skilled in healing. Yes, sir. Shouyu understood this time, nodding repeatedly. Just as she was about to rise, Li Shiming spoke again. Wait. He reached out and tapped lightly on her smooth forehead. A surge of divine ability flowed forth, sinking into her juk acupoint, transforming into a wisp of violet flame as he said, I can't let you leave so easily. I've planted a divine ability within your body. Should you try to flee, it will detonate and kill you. This is the end of the seas. No one you summon could ever remove it. Shouyu was not surprised. He was no benevolent monk, and planting such measures was not unusual for a Purple Mansion realm cultivator. Dropping to her knees, she formed a seal with both hands over her precious chi and declared solemnly, having received such great favor, I shall fulfill your will even at the cost of my life. Should I break this oath, may thunder strike me down, my profound scenery shatter, and my path of cultivation end forever. Thunder striking one down, huh? Truly a backwater place. The Thunder Palace's teachings have long been lost, yet they still add that line to a profound scenery spirit vow. Li Shiming still had some confidence in her, and said, Be careful. If anyone dares to search your soul, the purple flame will detonate and kill everyone involved. If you succeed in this matter, I'll reward you with an essence-gathering pill, enough to secure your Foundation Establishment realm. Essence-gathering pill? Could that be a Foundation Establishment realm pill? Though Shouyu had never heard of the essence-gathering pill, she certainly understood the words Foundation Establishment realm. She nodded repeatedly, withdrew, rose from the flames, and flew out of the hot spring. The cold sweat on her back finally ceased. The night wind swept in, weakening her knees. Lifting her sleeve, she saw the vivid marks on her shoulder and the overly pale new skin of her arm. Everything felt unreal, as if she had lived through another lifetime. Is this fortune, or the road to death? She muttered. Chapter 1181, Seclusion of Chengming 2, Moongaze Lake. Thunder rumbled faintly on the horizon as rain began to fall over the island. Mist rose all around, and stillness settled upon everything. Figures moved hastily inside the grand hall, draped in white. Only the sound of rain and footsteps echoed together. No one spoke inside the hall until a downpour swept in from the north. The world was now beyond shrouded in rain. A streak of light wove through the storm and landed before the hall, revealing a woman with a jade pendant at her waist. Her appearance was unremarkable, but her bearing was bright and composed. Lady Xinghan. The cultivators on both sides bowed respectfully. Li Xinghan gave them a quick nod, ascended the steps, and entered the main hall. There, she saw Li Jiangqian, draped in white, descending from above. The young master who currently acted as the family head lowered his brows and said, "Aunt, you're here. I was just about to find you. I received word from Uncle Zholuo that 2 of our elders of the Zhoxing generation met misfortune in the northern region of the floating South Territory. Someone has come to claim compensation. It's not something I can decide. A senior must handle it." Li Xinghan had been stationed on the eastern shore to repel the cultivators of the capital Immortal Dao, or rather, to fight the devil cultivators who had taken advantage of the chaos to plunder. She had slain several with her sword, yet, having grown up amidst bloodshed, she found little satisfaction in it. Having just hurried back from the eastern shore, she felt a pang of sorrow upon hearing this and asked, "Which brothers were they?" Li Jiangqian replied, "One was Uncle Zhouqin of the second lineage, at the early Qi cultivation realm. The other was Aunt Xingxai of the first lineage, at the peak of the embryonic breathing realm." Both were acquaintances of Li Xinghan. Li Zhouqin's talent had even been considered decent. He had once visited the Central Isles. The news stirred sorrow in her heart as she said, "The family always sends our direct descendants out to temper themselves, treating them as any hired retainer. They're even made to take the most dangerous border assignments. It's meant for experience, yet misfortune like this only ends in needless death." Li Xinghan had trained with the sword since childhood and had never dealt with such matters before. Killing men or slaying demonic creatures was simple, but handling funerals left her lost. She asked uncertainly, "Where are the 2 seniors?" She was referring to Li Minggong and Li Qinghuai. Li Jiangqian replied, "Great-Aunt Minggong and Great-Uncle Qinghuai have both gone into seclusion to heal, as well as the guest cultivator Miao Shui and senior White Ape as well. Lord Shui is outside searching for Dharma Protector Ding. Only Chu Buji, Li Wan, and Siwei remain on the lake." He paused and added, "And Dharma Protector Chen Yang. To be exact, Chen Yang was Madame Chen's elder brother and the maternal uncle of his second brother, Li Jianglong. His recent breakthrough had undoubtedly raised the standing of the Chun family by the lake, whose bloodline was closely tied to the Li family. By all rights, Li Jiangqian should have been pleased, but his expression showed little joy. Still no word on guest cultivator Ding. Li Xinghan felt a surge of worry. Ding Weizing's strength was among the very best, and his loyalty to the family had never wavered. His disappearance for several months could not help but cause deep concern. After hearing Li Jiangqian's report in full, she replied, "Let's gather all our brothers and sisters for a proper talk. At a time like this, with the family lacking its pillar, it will only seem as though we've failed our duty if we don't unite." Li Jiangqian nodded repeatedly, sent someone to summon the others, and said, "Aunt, I'll also be going into seclusion soon. There's still one technique I haven't mastered, but I can't delay my foundation establishment realm any longer." He cultivated the 6th grade heavenly scripture of the Dimming Li Day, and had recently mastered the flame-stepping movement, its complementary escape spell Crimson Radiance of the Li Sky, and the now well-known Supreme Yang Resonance art. The one technique he had yet to master was the 6th grade spell Great Li White Radiance, which required the radiant fire of the Purple Mansion realm, a resource he could no longer hope to obtain. Li Xinghan didn't know the technical details, but she nodded with faint envy. Though a generation older, she was still only at the 5th stage of the Qi cultivation realm. After a short wait, a man in black pleated robes entered the hall. A sword hung at his waist, and his bearing was sharp with metallic energy. His cultivation had reached the 7th stage of the Qi cultivation realm. Li Xinghan nodded and called out, "Brother." Li Zholuo answered in turn. He had recently taken charge of Qingdu, and had consolidated his cultivation. He had continued training in spell arts, but affairs around the lake had kept multiplying. It was only upon sitting in the hall that he finally found a moment to rest. After another short while, the eldest of the brothers, Li Zhoufeng, arrived. The 2 brothers looked nearly identical. They were both known for going wherever duty called and rarely speaking. After a brief greeting, they stood quietly to the side. Li Jiangqian withdrew respectfully. Few among the Zhoxing generation stood out, yet these few were already considered leaders. Just as Li Zholuo was about to speak, thunder roared outside, and heavy rain poured down. A figure descended before the hall, shook off the water from his robes, pushed open the doors, and entered with a grin. He called out, "Brothers, what a rare chance to see you all together." A golden chain jingled crisply around his neck. His face was rather handsome, his white robes neat, and he held a folding fan painted with flowers, birds, and fish. Li Zhuo's expression turned slightly awkward, but he kept his composure, stepping forward to greet him. Fifth brother, you're here. You seldom visit the island. What a coincidence to see you today. Li Xinghan glanced at the newcomer. It was Li Zhoming, the direct grandson of the family's Taoist master. His cultivation was only at the early Qi cultivation realm, the weakest among those present. She had met him only a few times before, so she offered a brief bow and said, So today I finally get to see fifth brother. Li Zhoming smiled, bowed to everyone, lifted his robe slightly as he stepped in, and folded the fan in his hand, saying, I know. I ran into the old elder not long ago and got quite the scolding. He told me to reform myself and start anew, so I thought I'd come to the island for a look and perhaps hear some good counsel. All right, Li Zholuo replied softly. He held the highest position among the brothers, and with Li Zhouwei absent, the others naturally deferred to him. He spoke quietly. Jiangxian is about to enter seclusion for his foundation establishment realm, so someone must oversee the island. Both Jiangxiao and Jianglong are fine children, and each hold important posts. Choosing either to manage the island would seem partial to one side. I asked the old elder, and he said it should be decided by us of the Zhoxing generation. What do you all think? Once Li Zholuo finished, Li Zhoming tucked his fan under his arm and said with a grin, Why? Naturally it should be you, brother. You're the most respected among us. You can just take charge of family affairs. There's nothing more to discuss, nothing at all. He tapped his folded fan against his sleeve as he spoke. The brothers Li Zhoufang and Li Zhouyang remained silent, as always, while Li Xinghan merely held her sword without replying. Seeing the quiet mood, Li Zhoming shrugged and said, So it's settled then? I thought it was something serious. Li Xinghan could no longer hold back and finally spoke. Brother, when the old elder said the Zhoxing generation would choose, did he mean we're to choose which young master, or that the decision lies among us Zhoxing generation members? Li Zholuo, the most striking of them all and clear in speech, answered. The old elder feared that appointing one of the young masters directly would stir resentment. He hopes one of us brothers will temporarily oversee things. It's only for a few years, after all. Li Xinghan finally nodded thoughtfully. Though she had spent many years away from home, she was well aware of her brother's accomplishments. There was, in truth, no better candidate, but hesitation still lingered in her heart. The youngest branch has never presided over family affairs before. Have the two foundation establishment realm elders been informed? If the old elder's order truly says this, then it's no different from naming fourth brother as acting head outright. Chapter 1182, Rules I. Li Xinghan paused to silently remind herself to ask Li Xianxian later. She nodded in response and said, The elder's orders are clear. I'll trouble you to take charge, brother. Li Zholuo was clad in black. Having cultivated a sharp gold aura, his very presence carried a stern, commanding air that naturally inspired confidence. He cupped his hands respectfully and said solemnly, You need not worry, little sister. Standing nearby, Li Zhoming glanced between them, hesitating to speak. Li Zholuo had once managed Qingdu and punished him several times, so he naturally feared him. His younger sister Li Xinghan might be young, but with the sword on her back and the killing intent she exuded, he feared her all the same and couldn't bring himself to say anything. Li Xinghan didn't like this so-called direct descendant of the Purple Mansion realm either. The Taoist master had few offspring, and this one, though precious, was useless. Even though she lived away from home, she had heard the rumors about him. They say he's greedy when sent out and incompetent at home. The Taoist master holds him in little regard and has never gifted him any proper Dharma artifacts. He performs poorly in duels, and almost lost to a minor family cultivator, disgracing the family. The elders fear he'll bring ruin to the bloodline, so they simply let him idle about all day, hoping he stays out of trouble. Though Li Zhoming was indeed the Purple Mansion realm's direct grandson and was kept around out of respect for the Taoist master, Li Xinghan still found him insufferable. She turned to leave, and just as she reached the hall doors, she saw the brothers Li Zhoufang and Li Zhouyang following their fourth brother, speaking in low, pleading tones. Their voices drifted faintly to her ears. Our father toiled his whole life and died on the river. Now our younger brother has passed as well. We only hoped the family might grant his child a protected position. Only then did Li Xinghan recall that the late Li Zhouqin was actually the younger brother of Li Zhoufang and Li Zhouyang. He had been adopted years ago to continue another branch's incense line. The two brothers, who had been silent before their elders but protective of their kin, were clearly here to ask for an official post for their kin. The resources one receives on the island are only as much as one's innate ability and effort deserve. Protection posts have always been reserved for outsiders. The family feared its descendants might grow complacent through inherited privilege, and thus such favors are rarely granted. What a pity! Li Xinghan found her elder brothers admirable in every way, except for their stubborn obsession with hereditary favor. She hesitated mid-step, thinking to turn back and speak, when a voice called from behind her, "Little sister." It was Li Zhoming, chasing after her. "Forget it. Brother Zholuo should be able to handle this." Li Xinghan stopped reluctantly. As she turned to face the fan-wielding young man before her, she maintained a polite tone and asked, "What brings you here, fifth brother?" Li Zhoming tucked his fan under his arm and grinned. "I heard you're leading a group west to the Great Desert to eliminate a band of wandering devil cultivators. They say there's a rare metal there called White Falcon metal, something you can't buy at the lake markets. It can be forged into Dharma artifacts. Could you bring some back for me? I'll compensate you with spirit resources." Li Xinghan found it rather strange and said, "So you've begun studying Dharma artifacts as well. That's good. I'll be sure to bring some back." Relieved, Li Zhoming thanked her hastily and took his leave. The young woman rose into the wind, flying toward the central island, her mind turning over thoughts as she went. How odd. She pondered in silence, then detoured to her cave dwelling to gather a few things. She landed before a courtyard on the island as the sky darkened. The two pots of kumquat, trees that once flanked the gate had been replaced by stone lions standing atop carved pedestals. Weighing the change for a moment, she hesitated and muttered, "How extravagant it's become." Pushing open the gate, a smile finally appeared on Li Xinghan's face as she called out, "Mother!" Her mother looked up in delight and hurried over. The man sipping wine in the courtyard glanced their way, and her elder brother and sister-in-law rushed out from the inner room. In an instant, the courtyard was filled with cheerful noise as the family pulled her inside. In truth, there had once been much discord in Li Xinghan's household. Her father's mediocre cultivation had left him unfulfilled, and her brother and sister-in-law had long entertained thoughts of splitting from the family. Whether she returned home or not had hardly mattered to anyone. But ever since she came down from Zhijing Mountain, her sister-in-law couldn't bear to part with her, and laughter filled the house day after day. It felt like a festival every time she returned. She was pulled to sit beside her father as her beaming mother said with a laugh, "Honor, your uncle's long years of service have finally paid off. He's been promoted to peak manager of Wutu Peak." The position of peak manager within the Li family was already quite respectable, and Wutu Peak was among the wealthiest of them. Li Xinghan brightened immediately and said with a smile, "So he's finally made it." Her joy quickly faded as she recalled that her uncle carried the taint of having once been connected to the remnants of the Yu family and possessed only a modest cultivation. It should have been difficult for him to attain such a post. Her smile disappeared as she asked, "When was the appointment made?" Her mother replied cheerfully, "At noon." He was overjoyed. It's quite a grand position, they say. He still hasn't come home, even though it's already late. At noon, a jolt ran through Li Xinghan's heart. I've barely left, and Brother Zholuo already personally promoted him. Her earlier delight faded into confusion. Holding her chopsticks, she found herself unable to decide whether to pick up the food before her. Silence fell over her. Li Xinghan sank into thought. Her own cultivation of the jade, true qi, the true unison treasured qi, had come from her uncle Qi Tiaozong, who had forsaken his own path to spend years chanting sutras at the altar to harvest it. To be frank, half the credit for her being favored by the Taoist master, and for her potential future foundation establishment realm, belonged to him. Even her early cultivation resources and guidance along the path had largely come from him. Though her current strength was mostly due to the family's support, it was her uncle who had truly helped her stand out. She fell even quieter. When they caught sight of her expression, her family also grew silent. Her father glanced at her and said sternly, "Zholuo is the one overseeing family affairs now, and you are among the top of the Zhoxing generation. Some things are best accepted as they are. Your uncle has toiled for decades. He deserves to be rewarded. Would you really be so ungrateful as to ask your fourth brother to revoke the order? Has your uncle done something wrong, or has Zholuo promoted him unfairly? If so, give a reason." It was true that Qi Tiaozong was capable, but it was also true that Li Zholuo's promotion carried a trace of personal favor and gratitude for her support. Her uncle had finally made a breakthrough in his career, and Li Xinghan truly had no way to refuse such goodwill. She had always looked down on those who acted out of personal bias, yet at this moment she could not find the words. Setting down her chopsticks, she said quietly, "Cherish this while it lasts. I'm away most of the year, but let the household stay as it is. Don't be too extravagant. The senior has only just been buried. Keep everything simple." The middle-aged man beside them set down his cup and said, "Eldest, sell those stone lions at the gate tomorrow and put the 2 pots of kumquats back." His elder brother sighed. Father just picked them out a few days ago. He was so pleased. He'd go to the gate every day just to look at them. Why sell them already? But then his wife from the Qi family hushed him, taking Li Xinghan's hand and whispering, "When it comes to your father's matters, you're someone of standing on the island now. Whatever happens, preserving your own life comes first. If anything were to happen to you, this family's hopes would all be gone." Before Li Xinghan could reply, her father said gravely, "We understand. Serving the lake is important, but serving the lake while letting your kin share a bit of its light isn't a contradiction. Who in this world is a saint untouched by personal gain?" "I understand, father." 1. A kumquat is a small, oval-shaped citrus fruit that can be eaten whole, including its sweet peel and tart flesh. Chapter 1183, Rules 2. Li Xinghan forced herself to take a few bites, finding the food hard to swallow. Knowing her father would soon bring up a request for her brother's appointment, she excused herself. Her father said nothing, and only her mother walked her out. Outside the courtyard, she sent her spiritual sense within. The dining table felt emptier without her presence. Her mother wept, her father sighed, and her brother and sister-in-law exchanged glances in silence. After a long pause, she heard her father's voice say, "She's too proud for her own good. Even without her, your uncle's still there. You'll get your post either way. It's just not a good look, and it might draw the attention of Chengdu's clan chief. Tomorrow, you'll come with me." Unable to bear hearing more, Li Xinghan quickened her pace and took flight, the cold night wind lashing her face. Her heart grew heavy. What arrogance! If I were truly like Aunt Minggong and the others who devote themselves wholly to the lake, my uncle wouldn't even have his post. I'm merely saving face, that's all. In the end, it's because his influence isn't strong enough to move me. Li Xinghan had upheld a swordswoman's heart, upright and unyielding, from childhood. Yet now, clarity dawned painfully within her. I used to think the favoritism on the island was due to Chengdu's negligence. But now I see, I myself can barely hold fast to principle. She flew straight toward Chengdu. The side peak was covered in white mist, and an old man paced slowly atop it, leaning on his staff. Li Xinghan had never once seen him rest, and this time was no different. She bowed deeply. "Elder," Li Xianxian looked her over and said, "So you've come, Xinghan. Is this about Zholua's matter? Come inside." Li Xuanxuan's seniority was far too great. Li Xinghan followed him respectfully into the pavilion and said reverently, "Your orders must have their reasons, Elder. I have no objections. Only my 4th brother is truly fit for the post. It's just that, having witnessed family affairs for the first time and preparing to depart soon, I feel somewhat uneasy." After hesitating for a few breaths, she added uneasily, "There is much favoritism across the lake. Cultivators hold personal ties too dearly. Xinghan is guilty of the same." Li Xinghan recounted everything that had happened at home. Li Xianxian set aside what he was doing, listened in silence, then sighed. "Xinghan, how old is your father, and what is his cultivation level?" Li Xinghan quickly bowed and answered, "My father is 47 years old, at the 4th stage of the embryonic breathing realm." Li Xianxian nodded slowly. "That child's path of cultivation has already reached its end. He has but a few decades left. Xinghan, will you be able to reach the foundation establishment realm?" Li Xinghan nodded slightly. "I will do my best. There is still hope." The elder sighed deeply and asked, "And what of the Purple Mansion realm?" Li Xinghan could only reply, "I dare not hope for such heights." Li Xianxian spoke softly. "For many in this world, the road of cultivation ends early. It's not just you who no longer dreams of the Purple Mansion realm. Even most of the young masters seldom aspire to it. For people like you, once the foundation establishment realm is reached, the path of cultivation is nearly over, yet the years that follow are many. There are countless cultivators like your father on the lake. 8 in 10 stagnate at embryonic breathing realm. A smaller portion cultivate various unrefined qi and reach a dead end. The rest linger in qi cultivation realm. Most are unable to progress past a few stages, with only a handful reaching its peak. The old man seemed momentarily dazed, then said in a heavy tone, "They have no real attainment. Their cultivation ends here, and what can they do with the remaining decades or centuries of life? These cultivators, who can no longer take a single step forward, once idle, who can control them? No one can." Li Xinghan remained silent as Li Xianxian continued slowly. "Do not underestimate them. They can exploit the people, keep countless concubines, kill for blood, or even practice devil techniques. The fact that they now merely pull strings and trade favors for their descendants' peace, that is already the best outcome our teachings have achieved." The elder said softly. Shijuan built this intricate, class-divided system of offices and obligations. The network of oversight and mutual restraint was not created without reason. Xinghan, sometimes we have no need of such people. Yet keeping them occupied is vital, for us and for the common folk. Merit alone cannot always keep them busy. Li Xinghan stared blankly at the old man before her as he finished. Later, Zhou gathered all sorts of medicines to aid breakthroughs. Some weren't as effective as hoped. Yet it was only after these cultivators arranged for their kins that they dared to shut themselves away and gamble on that single thread of life. A certain degree of nepotism, using connections to secure positions, is not always an evil thing. In these times, when the world outside is obsessed with refining blood qi, we cannot demand too much of them. Li Xinghan's hands tightened into fists. The sword on her back shimmered coldly in the moonlight as she whispered, "Elder, is this truly in accordance with the righteous Tao?" Leaning back in his chair, his snow-white beard resting upon his wrinkled hand, Li Xianxian looked weary as he said softly, "We cannot reign in a crowd of endlessly greedy men. All we can do is redirect their greed elsewhere. Xinghan, things cannot change overnight. Perhaps your generation will find better ways, but for now, preserving the peace of the mortal world leaves us no other choice." Li Xinghan's gaze slowly cleared, and she nodded, deep in thought. "Xinghan, I spoke to your fourth brother about this earlier today. I only need you to understand one truth." The elder hunched in his tall redwood chair, his figure half hidden in shadow. For an instant, his frailty shone through, and his voice grew faint. "Much that lies outside the rules still exists within them." Within the island, night had deepened, yet the great hall remained brightly lit. Piles of scrolls were stacked upon the desk as Li Zholuo read carefully, one hand propped beneath his chin. He was lost in thought. It was his first time overseeing the affairs of the island and lake, and unease lingered in his heart. He had been meeting with his brothers since morning, tending to every detail, and it was only now that he had begun to uncover many of the hidden workings behind it all. So many outer families are attached to the island. There are quite a few talented ones among them. Two even attempted foundation establishment realm here and failed. He studied the records intently until well past midnight, when an attendant arrived to report, "My lord, the third young master has returned from the eastern shore. He's waiting outside the hall." Li Zholuo immediately set down his brush and said, "Quickly, invite him in." Chapter 1184, A Request for Pill. A golden-eyed youth in armor soon strode into the hall. Li Jiangxia stood tall, taller even than Li Zholuo, and bowed low upon seeing him, his massive frame sinking like a crouching bear as he said in a deep voice, "Greetings, fourth uncle." Li Zholuo hurried forward to lift him up. Li Jiangxia's expression was grave as he spoke quietly. "Uncle Zholuo, I've been stationed at the eastern shore for many days now, yet there's been no word from my father. I grew too anxious to stay idle, and with matters pressing on that side, I came back myself to ask if you've heard anything." Only then did Li Zholuo recall that second young master Li Jianglong had returned with Li Minggong and the others. He had already been aware of the news and had attended Li Chenghui's funeral rites. At that time, Cui Jian had been away from the eastern shore, which was swarming with devil cultivators hoping to profit from the chaos. Li Jiangxia had been the only one capable of taking charge, and since the journey was perilous, he had remained there, offering only distant rites. Now that things had settled, he had returned with the cultivators of Profound Peak Gate to pay respects. Li Zholuo merely said, "No word yet, but he should be safe. How are the cultivators from Profound Peak Gate?" Li Jiangxia replied, "Kong Gushi has returned. You may ask him for details, uncle. As for me, I've come to request manpower." Li Zholuo frowned. "For what?" Li Jiangxia looked somewhat uncomfortable and said quietly, "The cultivators of the capital Immortal Tao have ceased advancing westward and are even recalling their people instead. Meanwhile, the nearby devil cultivators, having heard rumors of our Purple Mansion realm cultivators' misfortune, keep coming to plunder, thinking the law cannot punish the many. They come in groups of 3 or 5 to rob us. At first it was small skirmishes, but as time went on and nothing stopped them, the attacks had grown bolder. In recent days, even Foundation Establishment realm cultivators have appeared among them. Most of the Profound Peak Gate members have been injured. Only Master Kong remains to hold the line, but he's stretched thin. I was hoping the family could send a few to assist. Li Zholuo looked slightly embarrassed as he replied, "It's difficult for anyone here to leave right now. The stronger seniors are all in seclusion, and there are devil cultivators in the Great Desert as well. I plan to send Li Wan and Chu Buji with Xinghan and her group soon, but it will take a few more days." Li Jiangxia sighed softly, and Li Zholuo continued, "Wait a little while longer. I'll speak to Qin Yang and have him go to the eastern shore. His combat skills are formidable, and his immortal foundation excels at fighting multiple opponents. He's the best candidate for the task." Li Jiangxia could only nod, but he didn't leave right away. After a brief hesitation, he said, "This time, I also wish to exchange for 1 essence-gathering pill from the family stock." Li Zholuo's brows furrowed, and he looked at the young man with some puzzlement. The boy was clearly only at the 5th stage of the Qi cultivation realm. He asked, "You're still a long way from the Foundation Establishment realm. Even if you advanced further, shouldn't you focus on mastering your arts first? The family will naturally prepare the pills for you, so why such haste?" Li Jiangxia hesitated slightly before replying. "It's an exchange I wish to make with the family. I have a close friend named Pei Xia, a man from the wilderness. He has reached the late stage of the Qi cultivation realm and needs only 1 pill to break through. If the family has an available quota, I'd like to use mine to obtain one for him." Li Zholuo suddenly understood and shook his head, saying, "What do you mean by that? If you're confident he can break through to the Foundation Establishment realm, and he's such a close friend of yours, the family is short-handed anyway. Even if the pill is granted to him directly, have him come to the lake to receive an appointment. I'll meet him myself." At that, Li Jiangxia looked embarrassed and said softly, "Uncle, Brother Pei has other plans. He intends to attempt his breakthrough in the Eastern Sea and wander the Outer Sea thereafter." "What?" Li Zholuo was stunned, feeling a surge of irritation in his chest. "So that's it. He wants to use the family's resources to win someone over. And who knows if that man will even succeed in breaking through. Giving a pill to a rogue cultivator from the wilderness is like throwing meat buns to a dog." Li Zholuo fell silent, and Li Jiangxia immediately caught his meaning, replying, "That's why I wish to exchange for it properly, uncle, through the family's channels." Li Zholuo let out a long sigh and shook his head. How can such a thing be treated as a mere exchange? After all, Li Shiming had gone missing. If he was injured and recuperating in the Outer Sea, it could be 20 or even 50 years before he returned. Every essence-gathering pill consumed was 1 less in existence. Its worth went far beyond its nominal value. In Jiangnan, where the Purple Mansion realm families jointly monopolized the supply, the pill's significance had long since exceeded that of mere treasure. The aloof and indifferent Shao family had always kept to themselves. Shao Shooting wandered the 4 seas, and even his own kin seldom knew his whereabouts. They too relied on their dwindling stock of essence-gathering pills, making any exchange with them difficult. But when he finished, the young man before him showed no surprise and bowed deeply, saying, "This junior is willing to forego his own share and transfer 1 to my friend instead. When I reach Foundation Establishment realm myself, if nothing changes by then, I'll not request another from the family." "You?" Li Zholuo shook his head and said, "Get up. What nonsense is this? How could the family ever let you go without your own pill? You've always had a good eye for people. I'll trust your judgment. Tell me, what Dao lineage does he follow? Don't tell me it's merging fire." He made a small joke, and Li Jiangxia's face lit up as he replied, "Of course not. Brother Pei cultivates the merchant gazing edge, a Dao lineage of the metal virtue." Metal virtue. Indeed, many Zhang and wanderers cultivate under that principle. There should still be 1 pill in the treasury. Take my written order and fetch it. Relief washed over Li Jiangxia. He nodded repeatedly and quickly withdrew, while Li Zholuo remained deep in thought. Pei Xia must have been planning to attempt Foundation Establishment realm long ago, but he didn't have the confidence to ask for a pill before. Now that I'm the one managing family affairs, this boy rushed here right away to request it. Among all those who had managed family affairs before, Li Zholuo was indeed the most accommodating in such matters. After all, he only expected to hold this position for 3 to 5 years. Given Li Jiangxia's outstanding talent, Li Zholuo naturally wished to have him owe a small favor and leave a good impression. He paced a few steps, composed himself, and sat once more in the head seat, calling out in a clear voice, "Summon the gate master of the profound peak gate." In less than a dozen breaths, an elderly man entered hastily. His hair was white and his face gaunt. Upon seeing Li Zholuo, he fell to his knees with a thud and said, "Greetings, family head. All of Profound Peak Gate is deeply grateful for your esteemed family's grace and mercy. I, Gushi, bow on behalf of our entire sect to offer thanks." Li Zholuo was somewhat surprised. This was the first time Kong Gushi had ever knelt to his family. He had only ever bowed in such a manner before the Taoist master himself. When meeting the Li family's family head, he had always exchanged courteous bows, nothing more. "Gate Master Kong, please rise quickly." But Kong Gushi did not rise. In Kong Gushi's eyes, the Li family had already shown boundless grace and righteousness. The gate master of the Profound Peak Gate knelt with heartfelt sincerity, tears streaming uncontrollably as he let out low, choked sobs. The Capital Immortal Dao's campaign had led to the disappearance of the Li family's Purple Mansion Realm Taoist master Zhaojing, as well as the Purple Mansion Realm Seed family head, Li Zhouwei. In Kong Gushi's view, all of it had stemmed from his Profound Peak Gate. So how could such guilt not move the old man to tears? Even the younger Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators of Profound Peak Gate had grown silent after the storm passed. The once cautious and inscrutable Kong Qiuyan now personally aided in healing Li family cultivators. The ever-meek Kong Xiaxiang patrolled the entire eastern shore for the Li family's sake. As for the elder Kong Guli, the old man had nearly abandoned his own treatment just to come to the lake and beg forgiveness. The bonds of blood and brotherhood pale before the promise of the Taoist master. My Profound Peak Gate owes the Li family a great debt indeed.